Hello, welcome to St. John's Episcopal Church Virtual Sunday School. I'm Reverend Elizabeth and I'm the priest and rector at St. John's. And for today, it'll be more of an introduction and as we prepare ourselves to look at the genealogy of Jesus. One of the things that all of us have is a history, and some of us have made family trees. And I know some families can go back hundreds of years, which I think is pretty awesome. My family tree, I can't go back that far. And so one of the things that we will be looking at is the genealogy of Jesus. And we will look a little bit more intimately at that in the season of Advent. And so before we get there, before we get specifically to Jesus, we learn a little bit about what Jesus's culture was like, what the Israelites' history was, and we will be starting with creation, going forward to the flood. We'll be looking at the story of Moses, of Ruth, of David and Goliath, of Esther, to name a few. Now, one of the things that I would encourage those who are helping the children and youth is to talk a little bit about a family tree. And so this next portion is going to be geared a little bit to the youth. So one of the things is that we have a family tree and we all have a history and culture. Now, I'm Canadian, born and raised in Canada, and my parents were born in Hungary. Hungary is a small country across the Atlantic Ocean in Europe. And what they brought to my life when I was growing up is their culture and their language, and that helped to shape me who I am today. And so I'd like to share with you a couple of pictures, and perhaps you have some pictures of yourself, perhaps from things that influenced your family background. And so as a very young child, my parents taught me how to speak Hungarian. But they also taught me, they brought me to a group in Sudbury called the Sudbury Hungarian Folk Ensemble, and I learned different kinds of folk dances. And this one right here, that's me as a little girl. So as I grew up, I learned about my family history. Now, what I learned as well is that my parents, they came from opposite sides of the country. And even how they said things were a little different. So for example, the eastern side, where my father was from, the word for pickle was a little different from my mother's side, who was from the western side. One of them said ugorka, and the other one said uborka. And so there's that little change of consonant, the G and the B. And so that is a little something different that they brought to me, and sometimes we joke around of who's right. But as I continue to grow up, I continue to grow up in the culture, and you can see here in this picture, it's a picture of me and my mother, and two RCMPs. RCMPs are special police in Canada, and the RCMP stands for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And what you may have noticed in this picture also is that it says Canada Day. Now, Canada Day, we have a special day like the people in the United States, July 4th. And Canada Day, we celebrate Canada as a country. And it was important here that for my parents and for those of us who are Hungarian in a Hungarian community in Sudbury, was that we not only celebrated our history, our culture, our language, we also celebrate the fact that we became Canadians. And so being Canadian with a Hungarian background helped shape me to who I am today. And as I grew up, I was able to go to Hungary to visit family and friends. And we also went to places that we learned about that country. We learned about the culture and how they lived. And we went to one of these little villages. It was like a museum, a town that was like a museum. And you can see the houses here, they're made of plaster and the roofs were made of straw. And that's how they lived. And when you walked inside one of those houses, you would see one of an old fashioned oven that was made of clay and other historical aspects of it. But we also learned a little bit more that hundreds of years ago, before Hungary really settled as a country, the Romans came to Hungary because they had a special kind of water. And that special kind of water have special properties, special minerals that can help heal someone. And there are various temperatures. And so a lot of people go to these healing baths, to these spas. And this picture here is one in Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary. And this is one of the oldest baths in Hungary where the Romans used to go. And that's where they spend their time for healing and for fellowship. Now, the water that you saw there is not the same kind of water. The water changes with a spring. So there's a circulation of water with new water. But I think it's pretty cool that even that part of history of Hungary, we got to experience and learn about. And so we all have a history. Some families have been here in the United States for a couple generations, and their relatives came over from Scotland or England or Italy or another country, whatever that country is. And so what I would like you to do is talk to your family and write a family tree. And again, the family tree looks a little like this, and sometimes you need a big piece of paper. And this big piece of paper is only from my father's side. So we have my grandfather and my grandmother, and then their children that they had, and their children's children, and their children's children. And we can ask questions of what did we learn? What did they pass down from our culture? What lessons did they teach us? How had they inspired us to be who we are today? Because for the next couple of months, we are going to be looking at Jesus, and we're going to be looking at his family tree. And his family tree goes all the way back to the beginning, to creation. And for those who are a little older, youth that are watching this, I would invite you to turn to the Gospel according to Matthew. And that's the first book in the New Testament. And there you can see a genealogy of Jesus's family. And as we go through the next couple of months learning about different characters and people and situations in the Old Testament, you can probably find a few names there. But like any other family and any other culture, there are also other things, other factors that help shape us who we are. And so that's what we are going to be looking at for the next couple months. So your homework for this week is to talk to your family and learn a little bit about your family tree, and ask them what they have learned from their parents and grandparents. And if you have a culture background, ask about that, because it's actually pretty exciting to learn about your history. And when we're done and as we go into Advent, the Advent is a particular season, it's a special season in the church year where we are preparing ourselves for the birth of Jesus. And we will be looking a little bit more in depth at Jesus, and we'll be making Jesus's family tree, which is also called a Jesse tree. And so one of the things that as we prepare for that part of Sunday school, and this is for the parents as well, is perhaps when we begin our Advent study, if there's a way to maybe get a small Christmas tree, or even I've seen Jesse trees with a large branch of a tree with little offshoots, and to make little decorations to remember and to remind us of Jesus and the prophecies that were given for the coming of Christ. But we'll talk a little bit about more of that in a couple months. So until then, and until next week, have fun learning about your family tree, a family history, about the culture, and how that shaped you to be you. Because we're going to be finding out how all of the stories in the Old Testament have shaped Jesus to be Jesus. Take care and have a wonderful, exciting week. And I can't wait to look forward to our time next week, where we will be talking about God's creation. Bye for now.